Can one of the claims of many, at least philosophers of mind, philosophers of religion, is that because of the extraordinary strangeness of consciousness, that it actually can defeat a materialistic viewpoint because no materialistic solution can solve the problem. You have focused on the bedrock of physicalism and talked about computationalism and functionalism, which are derivative of a physical worldview, as your approach to consciousness, which these philosophers would say, you're on a hopeless journey.
Well, maybe we have a too narrow view of what materials are. In Japan, for historical reasons, German philosophers have been very, very popular. So I read a lot of Immanuel Kant. And Kant discusses Ding an sich, things in themselves.
Yeah.
And nobody really understands what materials on themselves are. We have theories for them, classical mechanics, quantum mechanics. We can understand how we can make transistors. We can understand how they behave. And you even make, nice smartphones nowadays. But we really don't know what these materials are. If we don't have the slightest idea. So, when you say physicalism, when you say materialism, I think we are looking at these materials in the universe from a very, very narrow perspective. We don't really know what these materials are capable of. So the very fact that the brain, which is an instance of a material, produces consciousness, is a testimony that materials are capable of great many things than we traditionally thought of.
Okay, so if that's true, just give me an example. Not that I'm saying you can solve consciousness, but just give me, in principle, one or two possible ways in which a materialistic brain can generate consciousness. Make up some ideas.
Well, people talk about superconductivity and, superfluidity. If you, have a very special condition of material, they behave in a totally unexpected way.
Right, okay.
I suspect that consciousness is one of these things that, in which materials behave in a totally unexpected way. If you observe biological systems like you and me, one of the things that strike you is that they are autonomous. They make their own destiny. They decide what they want to do, and they do it. If you look at the natural world, no other systems behave like that. Well, of course, we are producing robots, but these robots are very far from what biological systems are capable of in terms of this autonomicity. So if you ask, how can you make a very complex system of material be autonomous to that extent, then you are actually talking about how you can produce consciousness. Because consciousness, from evolutionary point of view, is all about this autonomicity, how you can choose your own action, how you can adapt to the environment, and so on. So,
but you can have autonomy without consciousness.
Well, that's debatable, I think.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Well, that's an open question.
Okay, so you would say that if you have autonomy, it is possible that you might need some kind of consciousness, even if it's at a very small level.
Actually, that's my bet.
Oh, okay.
Because
that's interesting.
Yeah, because if you look at the robots that we have produced, they are not really autonomous. It doesn't feel like they're autonomous to the degree that even a cat or a dog or
a paramecium.
Yeah, paramecium is capable of.
Yeah.
So I suspect that this autonomous behavior is actually a hallmark of consciousness. And so the question is, how can you make a system of a material be autonomous to that degree? I think if you can succeed that in producing a material like that, then probably you have succeeded in producing something that is conscious.
You may have a correlation between
Yeah.
autonomy and
Yeah.
consciousness, but they are radically different, we say, ontological stuff. Autonomy defines a kind of a method of living in a way, self-control.
Yeah.
consciousness is a phenomenal experience that we have. I mean, those are very different. There may be a wonderful correlation, but they're very different kinds of things.
They are, aren't they? So I suspect this very wonderful subjective phenomenal experience is a bonus that we get from the history of evolution, from evolutionary point of view.
So you believe consciousness is something that is that came along for the ride? Because some people say consciousness is fundamental in the universe, but you're saying in evolution it's a bonus. That a bonus means it didn't have to be there.
Well, I should phrase this very carefully, but from evolutionary point of view, the only thing that makes sense is this adaptation of in terms of behavior. In terms of adaptation, it makes sense to be autonomous, but it doesn't make sense to have this phenomenal experience.
Right, I agree with that.
So from this perspective, consciousness appears to be a bonus.
Yeah, I agree. And that to me doesn't make sense. It's so powerful and so special, it seems, that to have that be a bonus, some people say an epiphenomenon, which is a little different than a bonus, but they're sort of in the same category. I mean, it just doesn't feel right. And maybe you're right, but it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah, exactly. So probably the way materials exist in this universe is such that if you want to behave in an autonomous manner, then there should be this bonus, which is phenomenal consciousness.
So I like should be better than bonus, because should be implies there's some necessity, some, what we say, teleology. That's a bad word in science, but some goal-directed activity. But here's my fundamental question. At the end of the day, you're a materialistic guy in a physicalist universe, and that's your worldview. So at the end of the day, no matter what the model is, if it's a neuronal model, if it's an event-driven model, if it's a space-time-driven model, whatever you want, it's at the end of the day always what's called an identity theory. You have to say that something in the physical world is, equal sign, fully equal to consciousness.
Yeah.
It's an identity.
Yeah.
You can't say produces with something magic in between. Sure. You have to say it is that. It's the same thing. And it seems inconceivable that something in the physical world can literally be. Like we have pain in my foot. I step on a nail, and I have C fibers, electrical activities running up, and that causes the pain. But to say those fibers, those electrical activities in that fiber is the pain, or at any stage in my brain, they just don't seem the same category at all.
Yeah, I see what you mean, and I also suspect that there might have been some psychological reasons why we regard materials as something lifeless, something without consciousness, because we use them as tools. Like, for example, if you use a hammer, it doesn't help for you to feel that this hammer is conscious, so every time I bang it, it feels pain. So, the same can be said about the Christian tradition of regarding all living forms, apart from the humans, as something that can be used by humans. So I suspect that there might be some historical reasons and psychological reasons why we have traditionally regarded materials as devoid of consciousness.
So your view to maintain your physicalist material worldview is that our understanding of what is physical and what is material needs to expand, and may need to expand dramatically.
I believe so.
Right. And so I may come along with you then and agree, but I'm saying that now your definition of physical is anything that's real. So that's cheating a little bit.
Robert, as you know, in contemporary physics, people don't really know what is real and what is unreal. People talk about baby universes and 10 to the 110 possible ways that the vacuum could have been created. Right. So we don't really know what is real and what is unreal. So it's fair that you criticize physicists or materialists that we are narrowing the starting point too strictly. But on the other hand, we do have this new idea of what materials are. So within that space, maybe we can find a compromise between, dualistic view, for example, and materialistic view.
Personally, I hate compromise. What I like is the truth. I don't care where it is. Maybe the truth, maybe you're right. Maybe the brain fully is materialistic and it produces consciousness. I'm not trying to get in there some compromise. Sure. I just want the truth.
But what if there was truth only in compromises? What if?
Then truth is the dominating characteristic. I would accept the compromise if it's truth, but I won't use compromise as an excuse for coming to an opinion about the truth too quickly.
I see. Maybe this is going too far, but I'll say it anyway. In Western tradition, no matter what the religion was, like a Christian or Jewish or Muslims, always the assumption was there was one God, right? And I think from this tradition came, for example, Newtonian way of describing the universe, assuming that there was one natural law which determines everything. On the other hand, in the Eastern tradition, especially in Japan, there are, literally millions of gods, different gods. So I think probably the Eastern tradition of incorporating all these different principles into one harmony, into one compromise, might serve some service to solve this dilemma.